Welcome along, and welcome, please, two of my favorite guests, best-selling authors, filmmakers, theatrical impresarios, and two of my fellow Irishmen, Ann McElhinney and Phelim McAleer. Great to have you with us. We are live on the Mark Steyn cruise, somewhere in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, heading towards Prince Edward Island, with an audience from the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, the special administrative region of Hong Kong. And if there's any other special administrative region types here that I've forgotten, we'll be sure to mention you next time. You two, the last time you were here, you were talking about your best-selling book, Gosnell, which is now a motion picture about to be released, and we're going to have a screening of it on the cruise. And it's a terrific film. We'll talk about it in a minute. And we talked about the Gosnell background, but the guy who plays Kermit Gosnell, he was. If you don't know who Kermit Gosnell was, he's basically America's biggest serial killer, and he couldn't make the papers because he killed babies, and when you kill babies, it all gets mixed up with the politics of abortion, so people don't want to cover it. But you have a guy playing Kermit Gosnell who is he's the spitting image of him, and he's brilliant in the role. Tell us who that is.
Yeah, Earl Billings, who people might remember was like the Affleck guy, apparently.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think we got him out of retirement for this role, in fact.
He was actually thinking about retiring, and we got him for the role, and that sort of reinvigorated him, and he now wants to keep going.
Yeah.
He so enjoyed it so much.
But it's funny, and he didn't meet Gosnell. We've met Gosnell, and he's the absolute spit of him also in behaviour. He has this kind of this quiet tone and this kind of really creepy smile that he has all the time.
Yeah.
Which is real Gosnell.
No, he has this creepy smile in the film, which is fantastic. But he does all that. You told us last time, Anne, you went to see Gosnell in prison, and he brought up your favourite Jacques Brel song. And what was the song again?
Yeah, because he has this whole music thing, and so the guy who composed the music for the film, Boris Elkin, said, get him talking about music, because it's kind of interesting. It's
what a serial killer's like.
What do they like? What kind of music? So he's very into Chopin. He talked about his own, that he could have been an impresario himself. And then he said, you know what's really wonderful about prison, which a lot of you probably don't know. It just, you have that extra time, and he was sort of saying, it's great, because, I've been so busy at work, like, I just haven't had time, to do stuff. And so he sort of said, so it's really great, like, I'm reading a lot. And actually, this is so funny. I know, I'm going to get to answer the question. It's been great, like, I read a lot of, like, true crime, Like, he told that, and we're sort of sitting there going, are you shitting me now, right? So, he reads a lot of crime, but then he sort of said, and I love music, and I'm getting to listen to a lot of music, and I really like Jacques Brel. And I was like, Jacques Brel, like one of my favorites, and he went. And then he used to do this thing all through the interview. Every now and again, he'd do this brain freeze thing. I felt it was an affect, by the way, but he'd go. And of course, this gave him an opportunity to do this. What was the name?
It wasn't mine. It wasn't mine.
What was the name now? What was the name of that song? So he's sort of struggling with the thing. What's the name of that very famous, a very famous Jacques Brel song? And I'm sitting there thinking, do I tell him? Do I let him sit there? And then I just let him sit for a while, and then I went, Ne me quitte pas.
Yeah.
And he went, Ne me quitte pas. And he started singing the Jacques Brel song right in my face. I'm like sitting there going, well, this is a first.
Yeah, no. It's not often you have a serial killer singing your favorite beloved chanson to you.
It's sort of ruining it forever.
Yeah, no. That's really because you mentioned his love of Chopin, and when the police raid his house in the film, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a moment he actually goes into his little parlor and starts playing the piano. The film people, whether they're pro-life or pro-choice or whatever, get disturbed at the thought of abortion films because they think it's all going to be very graphic. This is actually really not that at all. It's more the story of both how the politics of it and the legal case and the lack of media coverage relate to the politics of abortion. And again, another terrific performance. It's got Dean Cain, who played Superman in Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark. Was Superman in that? It's one of those two franchise meets, isn't it? It's like Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman. Lewis and Clark meet Superman. I love that one. But it was the lady who plays the deputy district attorney. Tell us about her.
Well, Sarah Jane. I mean, she was a model. Actually.
Yeah, Sarah Jane Morris.
Yeah, she was a model, and she's been in a number of TV programs. But she turned out to be great for the role. She turned out to be great, and you know, she's pro-choice apparently, and but there's a scene in the film where they're going to a morgue to look at they found 47 bodies in his fridge, basically. And I don't mean his medical fridge, I mean the fridge in the kitchen. And we had these dolls covered in blankets, you know, in the morgue. And she walks in, and I think Anne had talked to her and showed her some photographs of his thing. She walks into the morgue ready to act the scene, and she sees the bodies laid out. They're just dolls. She starts crying.
Right.
She, you know, this film affected everyone because they started to realize, oh God, you know, this is not a clump of cells.
No.
This is a bit more than that, and you know.
Nick Searcy directed the film. Some of you will know Nick, even if you don't know his acting and his movie work, because he's guest hosted the Rush Limbaugh show.
He's not that good.
No.
You know,
and believe me, the low standard of guest hosts on the Rush Limbaugh show, that's not a very high bar if you can't get to that.
No, there's only one guest host.
And
that's acceptable to us.
But
I'm joking, Nick. I'm joking.
But the thing, as I said, you do all kinds of things. You do plays and you do films, and there's always a point. When I'm just waking up in the morning, I'm looking at the internet stories, is that other people, when they promoting a film or a play, so-and-so's going to be on this show tonight, so-and-so's going to be appearing on that show. With you guys, it's usually that some actor has, late in rehearsal, discovered, he agreed to take part in your play on climate change, and then discovered that it wasn't about how the world is going to burn and we're all going to die. And he's
I had a dental appointment.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah, well, I did the Ferguson play, which was the verbatim testimony from the grand jury testimony.
That's Ferguson, Missouri.
You know, and suddenly when you read the grand jury testimony, you realize what was in the media is not true. The story is completely different. 9 of the actors walked out after the first rehearsal.
Right.
And it was very difficult when you'd offer to another replacement actor, they would turn it down, and they would turn it down. Even this movie, we offered parts to people, and they would accept them, because some actors are not particularly political. You know, they just they see a role and they say, "Oh, that's interesting," and they would accept it on a Wednesday, and then we'd get an email on Sunday night after they'd spent the weekend with their friends.
Yeah.
I just remembered I'm going on a 3-week motorcycle holiday in
Across
Europe
India,
at that. I was like, you just remembered, like you know, it's like.
Well, the climate change one you did, which was in San Francisco, and you know all the joke, like when you're in New York, 90% of the waiters and waitresses in New York are unemployed actors. This guy actually went back to waiting rather than stay in your play. He had a rare acting job, and he thought, no, I think I'd rather go back to serving hamburgers.
That's right, And he wrote this anguished email about it. That was like, you know, I'm standing here serving alcohol at a bar at a bar mitzvah, you know, and I've had, you know, I'm so woe is me, and it's like, fine, but stop pretending that you're brave.
Right.
They need to stop giving themselves awards for bravery,
Yeah.
because they're, being brave is not shouting loudly to your friends about something you all agree with. Actually, being brave is shouting to your friends about something they disagree with.
Yeah.
But that's the definition of bravery has been completely twisted. It's not brave to say something that all your friends agree with. It's very tough to say something that all your friends disagree with. It has real costs.
And it's a funny thing about the show business, because those guys give themselves, actually, they congratulate themselves on their bravery and their courage far more than firemen or soldiers do. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's you found this model, because the Gosnell movie is based on a lot of the trial transcripts. And you and I talked about this once. I think the same thing with the Ferguson, Missouri thing. You went to a lot of the grand jury material. The climate change play, that was done based again on the trend. And you and I talked about this once. I think this trend started in the West End of London, where the British government, when they make a mess of things, like years later they hold an inquiry and then someone turns the inquiry into a play. They did it with the Iraq War inquiry and the Bloody Sunday inquiry and all the rest of it.
Because you can't make up stuff.
No.
You couldn't rival what the truth is.
I think we need to explain. Bloody Sunday was a thing in Ireland where Mark's relatives killed my relatives.
That's not... That's not true. I have my great uncle was given an IRA military funeral.
So his people are actually our people.
I play both sides of the aisle. I'm loyalist
That's
or
very
Republican
wise. That's very
according
wise.
to which pub I happen to find myself in Belfast.
Be careful about
I can convincingly. I swing both ways in Northern Ireland, although that's not something I ever said to Ian Paisley. And I forgot what we were talking about now.
Verbatim. We're getting into the Irish pub.
This idea of just doing of plays that are actually rooted
in what people say.
Yeah, in what people have actually said.
Yeah.
And it's
Under oath.
Under oath. I mean, that was the great thing about Gosnell, actually, was that, most of what you hear about abortion is politics, right? But when you get people, and this is what people like Christine Blasey Ford need to remember, is once you get under the spotlight and give statements under oath in court, no politics is allowed. It's all about the evidence. And when
what actually happened,
and when abortion was examined, as evidentially, it came out looking very bad, and the jury were purged of pro-life people. You weren't allowed to be pro-life and be on the jury of the Gosnell trial, because obviously you can't trust pro-life people. And when the trial ended, they were exceedingly not pro-choice, many of them. All of them had their faith in abortion shattered because they heard evidence, not politics. At the end of the trial, they wanted to charge the women with murder as well as Gosnell.
right.
Because they were saying, we're putting this guy, they were going to put him to death. And they said the women who paid for it, the women who organised it, the women who knew how pregnant they were and how illegal this was, should also be charged. So that's where they went from. They went from pro-choice to let's put the women in prison.
Yeah. No, it was actually the evidence is appalling. The behaviour of the state authorities, the people who are meant to. There's a line in the movie that actually brings up the difference. If you're an abortion clinic, this one, they had cats wandering around everywhere, feline fecal matter all over the place. And if you tried to do that in a pizza restaurant, they would have closed you down. If you were trying to just run a pizza oven out of there, when you're actually operating on women, because it's an abortion clinic, they were fine with it. I have to ask you, because as you alluded to, and you can probably tell by the accents, Phelim and Ann are both Italian. Did I get that right? Irish. I knew it was one or the other. And Ireland is in a state of great change at the moment because it has actually voted now. It was the holdout, basically, in Europe. And it has voted to legalize abortion.
It's even more dramatic than that. It's the only country on the planet Earth that has voted for abortion ever, and they voted by 2/3 2/3 of the in favor of abortion. It's very, very shocking.
Right.
So there's a lot of people in Ireland who don't recognize the country and are not sure where they're living anymore.
No.
And there's a shrillness and an ugliness to the pro-abortion side that's very hard to countenance. They danced, they danced and drank champagne. It's like, it's really bizarre.
Yeah.
It's like, what's that now? And we went to Ireland in the summer, and we have a house there, and we sort of sat outside, and some neighbours came over, and the woman from next door said, "Isn't it brilliant?"
Right.
And I said, well, it's a really weird word to use, the word brilliant, to describe a process where you tear a child apart inside his mother's womb. I said, and she started eating her words back into her mouth and all that, and she apologized afterwards. But the truth was, it was actually what she really does genuinely think. And a lot of people think like that, and that's one of the things I've been saying to people is that, America, obviously, everyone's got their holding their breath for Brett Kavanaugh. Holding their breath for Brett Kavanaugh. That's cool, isn't it?
That's a Jacques Brel song, I think.
Or it should be, if he was still alive. But the truth is that even if Roe v. Wade went away and people got to vote, just, look what happened in Ireland. And I can tell you, both sides in the debate in Ireland, neither of them saw that happening. Neither of them thought it would be that overwhelming. Even, the pro-abortion people did not think that they had that much support. And the pro-life people thought it was like a 50-50 thing. And they were both wrong. And it's kind of interesting, I just thought that's kind of like, it's salutary.
It was interesting, though, because the campaign and in the media, as you said, there was this jubilation, people were partying, and as you mentioned, everywhere else it's been judges in Roe versus Wade, in Britain, in Europe, it's been judges who've ruled that this is to actually have it done by referendum. And I know, without revisiting, at the risk of, oversimplifying, but like everybody oversimplifies when it comes to Irish history. They've been at the risk of oversimplifying the oversimplification of how everybody oversimplifies about it. But the whole thing, Irish nationalism changed a lot in the early years of the 20th century. If you just going from Redmond's Irish Parliamentary Party to the first years of the Irish Free State. And then you get to De Valera, who built basically through sheer force of personality, the modern Irish state rooted in Irish nationalism and Catholicism and in its distinction from England. Yeah. And so there were things that you could do elsewhere that you couldn't do in Ireland. And we were just talking backstage when I used to take the night boat from Dunleary, over from Ireland to Wales, and you'd see these sad girls occasionally going for abortions in Wales where it was legal. And so he built this country in his image, De Valera, Catholic. You didn't have legalized homosexuality after everybody else in Europe had got with it. You now have the head of government in Ireland is actually gay.
Yes.
And he's I think he's half Hindu.
Correct. Yes.
And so if you had said if like De Valera came back now and you said, oh, you're going to love the new Ireland. It's abortion, homosexuality's legal, and wait till you meet your successor, this gay Hindu over here. He would be going, what is this? This is like an alternative view. What happened?
Funny, I think it's still part of that. We're so distinct from the mother country.
Really?
I mean, yeah, and I think, Canada, Australia, Ireland, there's nobody more climate changey than those countries. There's nobody more diversity welcoming than those countries. And it's a kind of a pointing the finger back at the old-fashioned mother country.
Yeah.
So there's nobody, more homo-friendly than Ireland now, and more abortion-friendly now than Ireland. Because England is England came. There's this idea that England is an old-fashioned, stodgy country, and we have to be super to distinguish ourselves from England. We have to be super progressive. And and it's the same with Canada and Australia. I think that's driving a lot of that super progressive politics and that super diversity and super embrace the gays and embrace.
I think there's also kind of an inferiority complex, or there's some kind of an Irish complex, which is I don't know, that we have some kind of a bad feeling about ourselves. So we're always trying to prove something.
Yeah.
Oh my God, look how nice we are.
Yeah.
Like, we're nicer just than everybody. We kill all the babies, and you can have sex with anybody you like at all. Like, just go for it, your life, and all that. And we're just really open to things, like we're like that kind of people. And let's sing a song. Let's sing a song. Actually, no, let's sing a song that's really, really sad. Like, extremely sad about somebody who died and that didn't love you anyway. Yeah. But no, I think it's an inferiority complex. I think it's kind of like, I'm going to spend my whole time, a lack of confidence. I've got to keep on proving to people that I'm super cool.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it, I think.
We're the cool kids.
We're the cool kids. We're very cool
Not
now.
like those English who are
Oh, those English, they're so... oh, my God. Cool.
They're the prefects,
Desperate, really desperate, yeah.
How far is it going to go? I saw, the Irish Department of Education is now complaining that Irish teachers are too Irish.
Yes.
That 88% of teachers in... this came out a couple of days ago. 88% of teachers in Ireland speak Irish or English. I'd be very surprised if anything like 88% of them speak Irish.
Yes. Surprised.
I would be surprised by that. But they're saying they're insufficiently diverse, and so you're. Are you going to just?
How far can it go? Last year we had a stamp with Che Guevara's face on it.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's Ireland.
That's sad.
That is sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Yeah.
So is it in the end that nothing can resist the kind of the trend towards diversity and multiculturalism?
I just think I think our side are pathetic. It's amazing we win anything. Because we don't fight at all. They have all these phrases like diversity. It sounds great, by the way. And why is our side not? And it struck me yesterday something that could be done as a kind of a campaign. We should be all about diversity, and we should make a big deal about it and say, look, let's be really honest about diversity. Who cares what color you are? What really matters is the ideas, what your ideas are. And clearly, the campus is full of people with all the same idea. That can't be great for the young mind. No. So the young mind needs to be exposed. So what we need to do is, we need to have it 50-50. We need to have quotas. There needs to be a quota of people who are think of themselves as lefty, and there needs to be a quota of those right-wing nutjobs. And if you don't have that, then these people aren't getting exposed to ideas. But I just think this lying down and allowing them define diversity, defining diversity so narrowly by the colour of your skin, it's so reductionist.
No.
And it's so hateful as well. It's like, God, is that all I am? That my skin colour, is that feckin' interesting? And actually, talking of skin colour, it's quite funny. We were working on the Gosnell story for quite a long time, like 18 months. And somebody said, are you worried about being called racist? And I was thinking, you what now? And they said, he's black. And I went, he is. And I am not joking with you. It was like, I never noticed.
No.
And the reason you don't notice is because he is a mass murderer of babies. It's like, yeah, you know what? I never actually noticed the colour of his skin. And people, that's the truth. People don't always notice the colour of a person's skin because there's other things that are much more remarkable about them. But I just think we lie down and let people define words. I'll tell you what diversity means. Yeah, here's a bit of diversity for you now. And put those two people in a room, and the minute you show it to people, they go, oh, why? That's diversity, all right, And by the way, if having opinions that are conservative isn't criminal, why can't you be a teacher? Why can't you teach in a school?
It is criminal in England.
Well, they haven't locked them all up yet. We're not all locked up yet.
No, but you're right there, Anne, that actually making right-wing nut job, as you put it, into an approved identity group is probably actually the only way to get it introduced on American campuses, because and people then would be able to say, "Oh no, I identify as a right-wing nut job. I wasn't born one genetically, but I'm like transitioning. I haven't got all the way yet. I haven't had the full surgery, but I'm just
That's right. I have to get a suit and tie yet, but I'm nearly there. I have to go shopping, and I'll get it sorted. Any day now, I'm getting pearls. Yeah.
No, that might be the way to do it. You mentioned the way these actors that you work with, because you have this problem. Like if you produce a play on. If you're just reviving Oscar Wilde or Noel Coward or something, you've got your cast and then you have a couple of understudies. And you have to have a cast, so you've got a cast of 10 and then you have to have 200 understudies as your cast, and then the first lot of understudies all quit. What is it that they actually object to?
Truth.
It's as simple as that. Because actually, if it was fiction, they wouldn't mind so much. I mean, maybe they would, right? But the fact that it's true, it really kills them. Ferguson was 100% verbatim from the grand jury testimony. And, when you have 30 people telling you about the last 4 hours of someone's life and it ends in a very dramatic shootout, it's a very, very dramatic, shocking play. It's a wonderful play, and and everyone says that, and I don't take the credit for it. It's people's... And of course, it's the banality. People are shopping for a dress for a high school reunion, and they're walking up the steps, and they see this thing. And so you've got all these domestic details matched with this international news story happening to ordinary people, and they're talking about it as ordinary people do. And you so rarely hear ordinary people talk on TV nowadays. It's always canned nonsense. Elites, and it's the power of ordinary voices speaking under oath.
Right.
And in the case of Ferguson, what was incredible as well, because you didn't, you knew what age the people were, you knew what color they were and stuff. So you had all these black people who witnessed what happened to Michael Brown, and I mean it's amazing, and you've literally the most compelling witness. Who comes at the end of the play, and she's, this young black woman who is killed continuously, saying, I don't like cops. I want to be honest with you now. I don't like the cops.
She's a black liberation
I don't like
tattoo.
those cops, and she's got this liberation tattoo. I don't like those cops. He was going to kill that cop. I'm going to tell you, right? He was going to kill that cop if the cop hadn't shot him. And she keeps on saying, but I don't like the cops, and I don't even want to be here. And it was really, really, and you're watching that thinking, God, imagine if they'd told the truth at the time. Imagine if the journalists had told the truth at the time. People actually died because the journalists didn't tell the truth at the time. And they fomented this unbelievable false narrative that continues to get, replayed all the time.
No, and what's interesting is you get, with the Ferguson, Missouri case, everyone goes with the hands up, don't shoot, which is completely fake.
Yeah.
Never happened. And yet, for 18 months afterwards, if you switched on any award ceremony, the Grammy Awards, some bozo Grammy-nominated hot pop star in the middle of his choreography was doing 30 prancing dancers would do their hands up, don't shoot.
Well, we went to Bono's concert. Trust me, we did not buy the tickets. Somebody brought us. And,
that's still no excuse.
I know that. And he had this, and it was like the last world tour or whatever. And they had this huge, big, massive, stage, real long stage, whatever, super dramatic. And the climactic moment of the thing was him going,
hands up,
don't shoot. And he does this, and he goes along the thing. And I was sitting there thinking, and the problem was that was his world tour. And trust me, he did that on every continent. And this is where are we getting our stories out? So Phelim's play was unbelievable. I can't tell you how good it was. Obviously, I'm married to him. I think he's fabulous. But it's still, the play was absolutely fabulous. And the truth is, it should be still running in New York. Yeah. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievably, it was really dramatic and really powerful and very beautiful, actually. And as you say, these people, in people's own words, telling the story, and it's such a story of America, what happened in Ferguson, and the idea that play hasn't been shown all over the place. Anyway.
By the way, this is exactly the turf that we ought to be fighting
Yes.
on. You can't seriously have conservative government in a liberal culture. So if you're just focused on dragging some guy from a particular party across the finish line on election day every couple of years, but meantime the left control everything else. Bono is a very good example. Bono is a shrewd calculator of his self-interest. Yeah. So, for example, he moved his music publishing firm from Dublin to the Netherlands for tax reasons. Yeah. This is a guy whose big cause when he was touring Africa with George W. Bush's Treasury Secretary was debt forgiveness for Africa. We lend all this money to Africa, and the dictators we gave it to moved it into their Swiss bank accounts and bought bigger houses in the south of France. So now we should forgive debt for Africa and give more money to the next generation of dictators. And if Bono took that seriously, he'd move his music publishing firm, instead of moving it to Amsterdam, he'd move it to Ouagadougou. And that's a real town, by the way. No,
I thought you just made it up.
No racist tittering. No, but he would, and he doesn't, because you can't. Yeah. Because if you tried to move your music publishing to Ouagadougou or most other towns in Africa, you wouldn't be able to do it, and they'd loot your business and all, and there'd be like 4 years of regulation, and the dictators, thugs, would take all your royalties,
and would have his son in the band.
Yeah, they'd say, yeah, that's right.
He has to sing.
You'd have to have the dictator's son in U2, which actually, that would be an improvement these days.
Oh! Too far.
Too far.
Too far.
No, but why Bono is fiscally conservative. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But socially insane.
But what's that thing that you say, which I think is what someone else said, is this thing of
people are conservative. Well, so many people, live these conservative lives, but vote liberal. But actually, people are most conservative about the thing they know best. All liberals are conservative about what they know best. Like, I have a friend who's completely liberal and everything else, but he's Jewish and he's been to Israel and he's a right-wing nutjob about Israel. But it doesn't translate, because he knows the situation really well there. It's other people who
well, imagine, so we live in Venice, God between us and all harm, right? In California. And next door, I was chatting to somebody about it last night, but next door, right? So it's an app or whatever, and it connects you with your neighborhood or whatever. And it's just hilarious. So I joined it. And it is unbelievable, actually, what people talk. I spend an inordinate amount of time, actually, rather than reading, and improving my mind, I'm reading next door. People bitching, like seriously bitching over the homeless people. And then kind of going, but at the same time, I really like forgiving and all that kind of thing. And I'm kind of obviously, and doing all this signaling about how lovely they are. But at the same time, it's like, that was my backyard, by the way.
Yeah.
They stole, or the cat is gone, or whatever. And they're
thinking they're crapping in my backyard.
They've crapped in my do you recognize this guy? And it was, really amazing. So basically, it's like, and by the way, just a news flash on that, they're going to build homes for, I think, 90 or 100 or 190 homeless people, one block from the beach in Venice, where everyone else has spent $2 million for a tiny little, bolt hole there. And these guys are swanning on in with the syringes hanging out of their arms and all of that. And it's like, that's where we live.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question.
Well, we're going to take some questions from our various cruisers here today. So if you've got a question you would like to ask Phelim and Ann about their motion pictures and theatrical productions, or their general, or whether if you're a homeless person and you'd like to move in
next door
to their backyard event. Yes, the lady at the back there. Just hang on a minute, and either Laurie or Catherine will get to you with the microphone. Yep, I think just back there. Yep.
I'm Julie from Midland, Texas.
Hi, Julie.
I've been to Midland.
We're the oil and gas hate world right
now.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you're going to kind of try to do a film on your Ferguson play, the GoFundMe route.
Could you talk to me afterwards? If anyone hears any money for that, we're all about it.
I mean, I would love to do that
Yeah.
because it's very interesting. They're doing all these the TV series Beyonce, I think, about the Trayvon Martin. No, Trayvon Martin. Now, the Trayvon Martin is he said, she said, and this, but you can make a movie out of he said, she said because you can make the other guy look bad and your guy look good. But the Ferguson story is. He said, she said, he said, he said, and nobody else said, right? Except, so that's why no one else wants to make that movie. I'd love to do it. I think it would be quite cheap, and it's something that's very close to the top of my list.
Yeah.
Because it's a wonderfully dramatic story.
It's also the story of, it's a massive, massive historical importance to America. Yeah. It's kind of like the Gosnell thing in that sense. This is an untold, the Michael Brown story is an untold, hidden history.
And of the Obama presidency.
Yeah, it's really dramatic and it's really fabulous. And I think we should talk, anyone out there with money, keep in touch with friends. And anyone, by the way, with mineral rights.
Yeah, we learned a lot. We
learned that, yeah. Because we didn't know anything about the oil and gas business. And then we learned that America is the only place on the planet Earth where human beings can own mineral rights. Yeah. Everywhere else, it's the Queen or the government or whatever. So if you have mineral rights, we should really talk. Be friends. Yeah. We could be like super, super close.
Yeah, and that excludes like all the Canadians, as
yes, the Canadians.
Just said. Yeah, we have a question here from Melissa down there.
Hey, Melissa from Alabama via Budapest. And Dean Cain, the actor in your Gosnell movie, he's come all the way out of the closet as a conservative. But is the reason you have people sign up and then back out, is it because the fear of the blackball from the entertainment business? That if they do your film, they're afraid they won't be able to, that they'll be blackballed from other work?
No, the liberals are either cowardly or nasty. It's actually the people who back out for those purposes are the conservatives because they don't want to be labeled conservative. There's a real fear of being labeled conservatives. You'll never work again. So yeah, conservatives don't accept our jobs generally because they don't want to be in a conservative movie.
We're part of, well, it doesn't even really exist anymore, but we were part of a kind of an underground Hollywood group with lots of famous people. I'm not going to name any of them, but loads and loads of like really massive names. John Voight, for example. I can say his name because he's all out there himself, but like major names and stuff. And we would go to these events with like, and you'd be like, and the guy, like somebody very famous, would make a speech and say, I just love being here in the spirit, being among all the conservatives. By the way, would you please not tell anyone I was here because I really want to work. Like really sad. No, like, but seriously, And we've had that. There's another person, a very good person that we wanted to have in the film, a great person. And that person, I'm not even going to identify the sex here, but that person kind of said, I feel like I was born to be in your movie. I was born for this. And that went from that to zero.
No, that's true. And I had that. When I wrote my book, America Alone, in about the 18 months after that, every so often, I'd get an email, not from A-list Tom Cruise level types, but just below that, from actors who'd say, "Oh, I really loved your book, but for God's sake, don't mention it.
Don't tell anyone
to anybody." And I don't know how people would want to live their lives like that. Yeah. You're supposedly wealthy and successful, but you're absolutely terrified of anybody. And actually, in fairness, Richard Dreyfuss, who always played for like 40 years, has played the most annoying character in any movie. It doesn't matter whether it's Jaws. He gets up. You want that movie to keep going long enough to see his entire torso devoured by that shark. And in fairness to Richard Dreyfuss, he actually he goes, well, Stein's a real snotty, know-it-all, twerpy, irritating thing, but actually this book is rather good. And I think that is true. That's how the conservatives think. They don't want to be. And then the liberals. What was interesting to me about that I think it was the climate change play, is like one of these actors who pulled out said, "Oh, I couldn't possibly take a role that doesn't reflect my values." So it's like, Yeah, Macbeth, that's fine, because in fact, I've always wanted to kill my uncle. Yeah, I don't mind doing that. But this one is, you know, I mean, what kind of actor only wants to play characters he agrees with?
But it's also, funny, I think I learned a thing about acting because of dealing with a lot of actors with this and with the plays as well, is acting is like a drug addiction. It's like an actual, almost a certifiable thing where they have to act. And that's why those really good guys that we know in Hollywood who won't come out publicly, they have to act. You know, it's almost like successful actors, I think, have to have really lousy home lives, because it's like they want to be on a stage, on a cold stage, like when everyone else is home sitting at the fire watching Lifetime movies. And you know, and it's like, who wants that? I want to be watching the Lifetime movies, just to be clear. But they want to be out there, and it's like an addiction, and they have to have the adulation, and they have to have the applause.
So being in our productions
is a disaster.
Could destroy that potential.
No, it's not a disaster. It's obviously fabulous, but yes, I agree with you.
No. Let's take another question. Let's from the lady down here in the second row.
Thank you. And you mentioned something about mineral rights. I'm Karen Kesselring from La Conner, Washington. Yeah, we like cats. But anyway, you mentioned something about mineral rights. Where we are in Washington, we're having some very unfair and challenging issues with water rights. And in our locality, there are native tribes who have bought their position with some of our former governors and current officials. And have you thought about addressing this issue?
No, but it's but I think there's a whole load of very interesting issues around Native American rights and rights to water and all of that kind of thing. That again is of course super sensitive, and you've got to be super careful. Except for we wouldn't be careful at all about what to say.
I went to the Dakota Access Pipeline
dispute.
And we were abducted. We were in our car, having the car being shaken by Native American activists. We had to be rescued by 26 police officers and a SWAT team. So it's an interesting, challenging them is an interesting experience.
But it's an interesting story. I mean, I hear what you're saying. That is a very interesting story, one we haven't explored. But I think it's very, very interesting.
What's always interesting about that question is how far the Western guilt trippers are prepared to go in terms of native rights, and it's the same. It's the same thing in here in Canada. We're actually in the middle of the Gulf of the St. Lawrence River. And if you're almost anywhere, if you're actually on dry land in Canada and any official is giving a speech, it's the Governor General, it's the Prime Minister, the first thing they always say now is, we stand here on traditional native land of the whatever tribe they happen to be on. And it's a real buzzkiller, actually. They actually killed the 150th anniversary of the country because they were so busy apologizing for ever setting foot here in the first place. We're actually in the middle of the ocean, and this is about the only place in Canada where you don't have to say we stand here on traditional native. As far as I know, there might have been an Algonquin Indian who came across here in a canoe. We apologize for holding our show here on his canoe route. Sorry about that. And it's and at a certain point, I mean, if I'm being honest. For example, everybody in Canada pays for the Indian reservations, and we maintain people in these artificial communities where they don't have traditional property rights that the rest of society expects, and all the rest of it. And I don't know whether that whole reservation, and they don't. I mean, now in America, like it's a casino business they're in. That's not a traditional thing.
Yeah.
If you were with the
Heap big black on 20 on black. You know, it's like wah. You know.
Yeah, no. They didn't do that. They
Traditional
didn't,
dice throwing.
No, that's ridiculous. They didn't. When the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock, they didn't say, "Wow, look at that." Oh, well, I thought it was a lighthouse, but it's the Plymouth Rock Casino. Yeah. And look, Florence Henderson's playing tonight. What's up with that? Nobody. That's nothing to do with native culture. Yeah, do you want it, Laurie, do you want to just make sure we get this?
I should have added that in our state, the casinos do not pay taxes, and we've created a different class of citizen, a favored class of citizenship with the tribes.
Right, which
crazy.
Let's take another question. Yes, from our nearest cruiser from Longueuil, Quebec, on the south shore of the sea. You actually live on the St. Lawrence.
If I'd been in my condo, I would have seen the ship go by.
Yeah, that's good. You could actually walk to the cruise.
Just about.
Not like our poor cruiser from New Zealand.
Oh,
you actually could just walk across the bridge.
It was the only way I could afford the cruise.
Yeah, no, that's... We're glad you did, Ellen. What's your question?
I'm going to ask it in French. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That's okay. They're Irish. They're Irish Catholics, like you francophone Quebecers. They speak French.
I'll do it in Latin then. How's that? No, I have such an admiration. There's such brave people here. Do you ever get scared? I guess you do. Where do you find your courage? Do you ever get discouraged? And what keeps you going?
Wow.
Well, I'm from Northern Ireland, so this is like, honestly, it's not.
That's true.
It's kind of a joke, but it's not really. Like, I grew up with this stuff, like, getting the crap beaten out of me and also beating the crap out of other people. And I'm not talking metaphorically either. So it's kind of part of my culture,
He's right. And it's both sides in Northern Ireland are some of the toughest guys and hardest guys on the planet.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is that's just a reality of life in that corner.
It's
of the world.
tougher for Anne, who grew up south of the border and
in a genteel situation, surrounded by kind of civilized people. Going across the border is like, it was genuinely, it's a very, very different situation. But to answer your question, certainly with this Gosnell thing, I've traveled an awful lot around talking to pro-life groups and stuff, and I did a lot of the research on the book, and there's terrible stuff in the book. The book has terrible stuff in it, and the movie does not. The movie is very Hollywood. The movie is very watchable. The book is rough. I have to be honest about that. But and I remember, I prayed as a result of. I actually started praying again because I found it so frightening. I found parts of it. Steve Massoff, particularly, I found. I don't know if you've read that bit about it. I did. I didn't know what else to do. Because I think evil. Theoretical evil is grand, you know what I mean? It's sort of theoretical. But when you actually come really when you know it and know it's real, it's very scary. And I don't know what else to do with it except for pray for that. But then the other thing that I found great strength from, and it really has been amazing. It sounds really cliched, but so I travel around all the time. Oh God, we meet the unbelievable people out there. Like there's unbelievable people. Like there's one woman. Give you an example. One woman. Who's praying, like continuously praying for us, who had to have an elective double mastectomy because she was one of those group of people she is, and she offered all of her suffering up for us for the success of the movie, that type of thing. But also it's just been. And then the other thing that's happened to me, it's been very life-altering, this whole thing. Because everywhere I go, the thing, of course, that you realise, if there's been 60 million babies aborted, and that's even kind of conservative probably as a number, then obviously there's 60 million people out there, right? And the rest. So everywhere I go, you'll meet somebody, and I've got really used to it now, where they start walking up the side, up the back. Like one place I was at, and it was a restaurant, and I could see the waitress. I had her spotted, by the way, and then she said, "Please don't leave until I can get to talk to you." And then people tell me this story, and I never know what to do. Like, I don't know what, but they want to tell it. And people have told me stories that they've never told anyone. And I get very impressed with how good people are and how religious this country is. I think it's one of those things that people don't know about America. It's like they don't know it about Germany either. This is a very religious country. This is a deeply religious country. And it's wonderful. And that faith of the faithful buoys up all the rest of the agnostics and atheists. They're swimming in the enthusiasm and hope that's given by the faithful.
Yeah, that's actually a very important. That's a very important point, that agnostics and atheists, if they're honest, should be aware that they're living with the benefit of the faithful around them. But in your case, just to go back to it, does, if you say you guys arrived in Hollywood and you said, "Hey, we're from Ireland," and so everyone. No, but everyone. Oh, so you're Irish people who are interested in the creative arts. So you must politically agree with Bono and Sinead O'Connor and all those kind of people. Yeah. So it actually people expect you to be nice Irish progressives, which would have been the easy option for you.
It would have been very easy, and it's funny. It's I think this is one of the first. We're converts to conservatism, and it's the first time in our lives. I was an Irish Catholic. I mean, if you're an Irish Catholic, your culture, Northern Irish Catholic, your culture is fated all over the world. There's Irish pubs, Irish dancing, Irish music. Yeah. It's you've a smile everywhere on the world you go. But suddenly, I became this Northern Irish conservative, and it's for the first time in my life I'm unpopular. It's traumatic,
Horrible. I hate it. Yeah,
but I mean, I suppose I grew up in a conflict situation, but it's on you. It's weird, to be out there and not to be popular if you're brought up Irish. And, I mean, it's weird. It is. It's a.
But this sounds
why aren't you nice to us? We're Irish immigrants, for God's sake. What's wrong with you?
Well, I mean, Carnamaya Munger, who's the victim, one of Gosnell's victims, she is an actual genuine refugee. She spent 20 years in a Nepalese refugee camp.
Yeah, she's from Bhutan.
Bhutan, yes. And she's a classic Democrat victim. Actually, she's a woman, an immigrant, a refugee. She was going for an abortion. She ticks all the boxes. She died. There wasn't even a police report in Philadelphia about her death. There wasn't even an official report.
In the sanctuary city of Philadelphia.
In the sanctuary city.
In the city of brotherly love.
So it's like you were saying yesterday, Muslim outrages gays. You can be a female refugee abortion-seeking woman, but if you're going to damage the sacred right of abortion, you're pushed down the list.
Well, let me ask you a final question, because it's the thing we talked about with Michelle Bachmann also on the cruise. There's a sense that you meant, and I think that's great. You're basically the least popular Irishman on the planet. Every other Irishman can go into all these pseudo-ersatz Irish bars with the fakey Gaelic font all over the planet and be welcomed. And you, like the Irish conservative, nobody wants to have a Guinness with. Yeah. And it's like and it gets back to this question of the people have certain expectations of things, and yet of who you are from where you come from and all the rest of it. And yet genuine diversity is rarer and rarer. And one of the things that, to go back to when we were talking about the new Ireland with abortion and gay marriage and all the rest of it, is that everywhere feels the same now. And you can fly to almost any Western city and you land and the streets are full of like pizza and kebab places that are being operated by, you're not quite sure whether the guy serving you is an overweight Afghan or a svelte Tongan, but you know, even though you're in Helsinki, he probably didn't come from Helsinki.
Yeah.
The whole world is like, the whole Western world is like. And Ireland was a holdout. And Dundalk, which is a town you know, and for non-Irish people, Dundalk is one of those towns that was like always slightly, I've been there like 5 or 6 times, like super, it was like slightly scarier than other towns.
Yes.
And when bad things happened, the memory of it lingered. Like there's some long ago killing of Catholics by Protestants that's never been solved, but everyone thinks they know who was in on it and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm picking up, looking at the news one morning, and in Dundalk, a fake Muslim refugee kills a Japanese tourist.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, even when you go to Ireland now, you can't even have like traditional Protestant Catholic sectarian violence.
Country's gone to hell.
It's just got the same Islamic crazies as everybody everywhere else.
Yeah.
And is that the course we're all on now?
Yeah, it's I mean, Ireland is almost apologising for not having enough Muslim immigrants.
Right.
The progressives, they look, they're beating themselves up because they haven't taken in enough Muslims, because they want to be more diverse than the mother country. And something you talked about earlier, Ireland getting more like everywhere else. 70 years ago, Ireland was known throughout the world for culture and writers, from O'Casey to Yeats. But the Republic of Ireland, the state of Ireland, has not produced a world-class writer in the last 50 years, 70 years. As it's become more progressive, it's become less distinctive.
Or was it?
As it becomes more diverse, it's become less distinctive.
Or was it the English oppression you needed for all the great writers?
Could be that.
Could be that, yeah. A bit of that kind of oppression does very well for the arts.
Yeah. But where it, I mean, so you're saying that Ireland, despite its history with just Catholics and Protestants, thinks, we're on top of this now, let's bring in the Muslims. And that's going, so when we have you back in 30 years' time, one of you will be Sunni and one of you will be Shia. And that'll work out great, will it?
This is, I think you made the point, the difference between Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland. I know the difference, but most real or intelligent people wouldn't spot the difference. The difference is minuscule. We have killed, and I mean killed and shot and blown up. We invented the car bomb. The Irish people invented the car bomb.
And kneecapping.
The reason you have an artificial knee is because people in Belfast, to punish people who stole cars, was that they blew the knee out as a punishment. Yep. And so therefore the world-class knee top
innovations.
Of the innovations came out of Belfast.
Yeah.
So that's what we
We're
did
so
to people.
Proud.
And there's no difference between us at all. And as Mark says, the idea that you could bring in people from Somalia to that, and we're all going to embrace that, it's going to work out perfectly. There's no difference between me and my Protestant neighbour, except they're neater and tidier than I am.
Correct. Work ethic, and they're not alcoholic.
Yeah.
Quite to the same extent.
Quite to the same extent. But we want to bring people from alien cultures, who well, actually, it doesn't matter that the culture is alien. It's the values of the culture, actually, rather than.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. I tell you one thing I always like about Phelim and Ann, because it is a tough place, Phelim's.
He only likes one thing, by the way.
No. I like a lot of things, but there's one thing in particular, and I like their dark, mordant wit about the vicissitudes of life. And if you have like ancient, festering societal sores that chafe and chafe and chafe, dark, mordant wit gets you. And when I look at it doesn't matter whether you talk about the Anglo-Franco thing in Quebec, or particularly in things like Ferguson, where the minute anything like that happens, you're back to these rather sort of earnest, irredentist positions. I think actually a lot of that dark, mordant wit about ancient festering sores is actually one of the best solutions to it. We are going to be back, and we're going to have a screening of the film, and you'll be able to ask Phelim and Anne about it afterwards. But I hope you'll give them I hope you'll go and see the movie if it's coming to your town. That you will go and see it, because, as I said, this is the real battleground. You cannot have genuinely conservative government in a liberal culture, and if you cede all the other levers of society to the left and to the liberals, don't be surprised that it gets impossible to drag your guy across the finish line in November. Ann and Phelim, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.